Hey, deserving listeners. So, a lot of you have been wanting us to continue our Dungeons and Dragons therapy session podcast episodes. And the two Adams have been busy on a lot of different things. And we have finally been able to schedule it, but then the coronavirus happened. And so, instead of meeting in purpose and infecting each other with our cooties, or at least with Umberto's cooties, we have decided to do this over Zoom. And so here we are in our respective offices or homes doing Dungeons and Dragons, proving the fact that you can play Dungeons and Dragons not in person. This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Who are you, Umberto?
My name is Umberto Castañeda, and I pray Grollo the Cruel.
Adams, please introduce yourselves and talk about Game to Grow for a second.
My name is Adam Davis. I'm one of the executive directors of Game to Grow, also a founder of Game to Grow. Game to Grow, for those of you that don't know, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in the greater Seattle area that uses games of all kinds, but especially Dungeons and Dragons and therapeutic social skills groups for kids. We see over 80 kids a week in our therapeutic social skills groups, and while a diagnosis is not required, a lot of our players struggle with challenges related to autism, ADHD, anxiety, or depression. And we've actually, in the midst of COVID, transitioned all of our groups online. So I'm very familiar with playing Zoom D&D games now. We actually have a fundraiser going right now to support our transition into online D&D play. You can find more about that at gametogrowonline.cosvox.com.
Sweet. My name is Adam Johns. I'm the other executive director and founder of Game to Grow. I don't have much to add. You did such a good job on that pitch about Game to Grow. I'm the game master of this musical interlude that you guys are listening to with our lead, all lead guitarists. Everybody here is a lead guitarist of all the adventurers in this group.
So we need to recap what happened in the previous 10 or so sessions that we had. And, right? Isn't that what we need to do here, Adam Johns?
Yeah.
Is that what you want to do first?
Am I recapping it? I could. I actually really like when you do the recaps, Kirk.
I mean, I'll give it my shot.
If you're up to it.
Yeah, I haven't spent any time thinking about it. So we, Grollo the Cruel, who is played by Umberto, who is a tall half-orc, a barbarian, on the below than average intelligence spectrum, but above average heart.
Only in real life, though.
And I am Thrain Orkshorn, who is a dwarf cleric of Moradin, who is, pious and morally attempting to be good. And then we have Shush, the tiefling bard, who is of demon or devil ancestry. So, maybe his great-great-great-grandmother was a devil of some sort. But he looks mostly human. And he's a bard, which means he plays music for magic and also to entertain people. And he has aspirations of gaining an audience and being liked by people. And the three of us met up and were trying to save the world by going to this one town where up is down and down is up, meaning that everyone is worshiping the orc god, which is the evil god, and everyone hates the dwarf god, which is one of the good gods. And so we discovered in all of our sleuthing that outside of this town is a massive orc army of all the different orc tribes that have banded together in this very weird way, because orc tribes usually hate each other. And at the center of all this is the avatar of Gruumsh, who is the god of the orcs. And the avatar of Gruumsh his name is, what's his name again?
Lord Blancmere.
Lord Blancmere, who is a hoity-toity archaeologist or sage of some kind. And he, the god of orcs, the evil god of orcs, has, got himself into the body of Lord Blancmere. And Lord Blancmere is the one pulling all the strings, and he's getting all the orc armies together, and he's trying to engineer a way for Gruumsh to actually emerge directly onto our plane. Like Zeus actually like walking around on the planet, which isn't allowed by the rules of the universe that we're in. And so Gruumsh, if he is able to walk the earth, or Toril, or wherever we are, then he would be able to enact all of his evil deeds of destruction and evilness and death and rule and
Won't be good.
And we discovered, the three of us, and our other friend Nicholas, the orc army. We were captured, and we got away miraculously, and now we're wandering the wilderness trying to find our way back to the city or wherever we're going, and we're worried about the end of the world. Oh no. And then we traveled along a river, and we came upon these other half orcs, and it turns out we befriended them, and they were actually kind of allies, because we both had the same enemy of all of the orc army conglomeration. And so we were like, yeah, we both hate those. They're like, we didn't want to join the big orc conglomeration because we're free, or I don't know, whatever. Turns out one of them was Umberto's character, Grollo, his father, and there was a very emotional reunion where they almost tried to kill each other, and they are going to bring us or guide us along our way or something. Adam Johns will be able to clear that up. And I got a vision from my God of my hammer. It looks just like this, that is in the mountains, and it has special properties that I believe will be able to thwart and smite the Gruumsh avatar and bring an end to the evil uprising of all the orcs. And so perhaps the orcs are going to help us to the mountain lair where my special god hammer resides. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't even have a hammer right now because my hammer died. I just have like a club or something. So anything more to add to that, Johns?
Only that Grollo was sort of trying to decide whether or not he wanted to really find out the story of what happened with his father. And I believe we ended the very end of the last session with there's a moment where Grollo and his father were going to walk off, and his father was going to explain the story. And so we can kind of pick up from there and decide if that's still what Grollo. It's been some time, so we can figure out. Yeah. Can we jump right back into that, or do we need to create some space where Grollo's not ready to hear that story yet?
Well, it could be like, how at the beginning of new seasons of shows, even though they might have left things in a cliffhanger on some aspects, like they might start you in a different context for a little bit, and then they go back to like this other thing. Not always, but because maybe we can like do that so we can reacclimate, and then bam. So what were you gonna tell me the other?
I think that's a good idea. I also think so. Normally we start off, and usually we do this before the recap, but I think the recap was really good to get us all back in the mindset with a little bit of a check-in. And I think that's maybe a good idea to help get kind of the ball rolling again and help us get back into the swing of doing this. So I have a check-in question for you guys, for all of you to answer, and then for you to answer as your character as well. And this one's a little more lighthearted. It is, what is a piece of poetry or music that evokes an emotional reaction from you? So sometimes when you listen to music or you listen to poetry, you have an emotional reaction. We actually have a term for this that we use at Game to Grow, often applied to stories, which we call narrative transference. And Kirk, you're familiar. I think we might have even talked about this a little bit on the D&D podcast before. But transference is this idea of the projection of your thoughts, feelings, and desires onto something else, right? Oftentimes, your therapist, you project some aspect of what's going on onto your therapist, like as if they are your father or a parent figure or an authority figure, something along those lines. Narrative transference is the projection of those thoughts, feelings, and desires, but from a story or character perspective. So anytime you watch a Pixar film and you cry in the Pixar film, that's actually an experience of narrative transference. That's speaking to you on an emotional level for something that's happening in the film. And there's lots of stuff that we as humans experience naturally. You know, death and loss are part of the human experience. So when those things happen in Pixar films, everybody cries at the beginning of Up. And that's because it's got this story that really links back to what people experience. So what I'm looking for in this case is a piece of poetry or music that has some kind of emotional reaction. That might be excitement or it might be sadness, or it could be any of those things. Who would like to go first?
So personally, okay, so if I understood it right, like a piece of music, for example, that I really strongly emotionally react to.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. For me, there's too many music pieces that I emotionally react to, but if I could hang on to one specific one, there is a piece by Bach that was called, it was like a musical offering that he did to I think the Austrian king or whatever, the emperor. But it was this set of fugues and cannons that were set to a theme that the emperor played, and it was a ridiculously difficult theme because it was using every single one of the 12 notes, and so it sounds like a melody, but it's a really hard melody, and he improvised all these pieces of music. So when I hear the 3-part fugue of that series, it's got all these memories for me, because it's when I started college, and it's me reading a book called The Golden Braid, Golden Escher Bach. Like, it was like this really interesting book, and it was me starting like as an adult, you know, basically like living not in home, and that was that piece of music because I discovered it at the time, and I started getting into music theory. Like, so there's a lot of connections for me. So anytime I hear it, and it's of course not very common, so I don't hear it very frequently, but every now and then, like one time I was at a movie theater, and they were playing that before the movie started. Couldn't believe it. And I was like, what? So that's for me personally. And
in the case of your character, in the case of Grollo, you can just make something up here. There's an opportunity here for Grollo.
I was definitely going to go that.
Yeah. So you can build on our world, essentially.
Grollo, when I hear a war cry in the morning, it really makes me live. It reminds me of all those times where I cried for war also in the morning, and it also made me live. I love war cries.
Grollo, I have to ask, is a war cry like a yell, or is it like a sobbing cry for Grollo? I'm curious.
Oh, yeah, it's a very sad sobbing cry like this.
Perfect. Okay.
Apparently, your microphone has some sort of kill switch when things get really loud, because we didn't hear it. It just completely died on volume.
Okay, the throttled version would have been.
Perfect. Okay. Very sad. It's very sad. It's about death and more.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. Thank you, Grill. Who wants to go next?
I'll go. Public Enemy, Bring the Noise makes me angry. And for my character, Moradin, he would have said, originally it was the stone sacred tablets of Moradin and the poetry that none of you would understand because it's in an ancient form of dwarf language, and you're frankly not worthy of hearing it. But my new song that inspires me is the song that we sang on stage under the band name Moradin with the thunder wave and exploding fireworks that knocked everyone to the ground and gave us a chance to scan the crowd for any Grumpshites. That song
That was epic.
Gets the blood boiling.
Aren't the lyrics to that song literally like the ritual to sacrifice people to Grumsh?
Yes.
True rock and roll.
This is true. This is very hardcore death metal. Sweet. I love it. At some point we're gonna have to come up with a name to this song, so we can reference back to it. Do you guys have a name in mind?
Well, it'd be an Orcish, right?
Oh yeah.
I'll look up Orcish language while Davis goes.
But it was something like, it was like, I mean, maybe it should mean like death to Grumsh, but like sort of maybe a double entendre or something. Because we were trying to be sneaky about it.
Yeah. I like that. Adam, why don't you chime in with your?
For me, I'm going to switch it up and go poetry. When I was a kid, my dad really liked reading me the poem "If" by Rudyard Kipling. But that's actually not the poem that I'm going to talk about. It was the book that I had when I was a kid, when I was like 6. It was a book of like 101 poems, and it was this like really tiny leather-bound book that my dad had when he was a kid. And I would flip through it sometimes, and there was a poem I really liked in there called "How Did You Die" by Edmund Vance Cook. And it's got a really simple sort of A-B rhyme scheme, and it's all about not going down without a fight. And it's a really cool poem because it's like really simple, really good for like a kid's sense for poetry. Like a kid needs to know that, simple rhyme schemes are great. I was a child of Dr. Seuss, but in this case, it's a poem about getting knocked down and getting back up again, which I thought was a really cool motivational thing for me as a kid.
Was it called Chumbawamba?
Oh, that's about getting back up again. Nothing ever going to get me down. Speaking of rock and roll, Berta.
Really bring it back. Really bring it in. It's perfect.
So that's for me. For Shush, his favorite song, and the song that really motivates him, is called Kapale Riki Tetje, which roughly translates to "Song of the Broken Stars," which is a song. Shush really likes to sit and play music and look at the horizon, and think about the twinkling stars and whether those stars are dying stars or fighting stars, or whether they're lost and alone. This song in particular makes him think about all of life's questions.
Can I ask, is this song that Shush enjoys, is it a well-known song, or is it a not well-known song, or is it a song Shush wrote?
He didn't write it. No, this is a song. It's off their first album.
Sure.
Before they were popular.
So it's if you know the band.
Yeah.
Then
You had to be there. Yeah. Before they sold out.
Yeah. It wasn't their number one hit, but it was.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's not a good song for the radio.
Awesome. Well, I'll answer the question for myself as well. There's a song by Cat Stevens called "Father and Son," and the song is 2 verses, and one verse is the father singing a verse all about how the son needs to like slow down and take stock of life, and the second verse is all about like the son is like, don't try to make me into you. I'm not you. I gotta go live my own life. And that's basically the song. Like, there's no real like resolution. Eventually, they like sing their verses together at the same time. And my dad knows how to play guitar. He kind of taught himself how to play guitar. And occasionally I'll go and sit with him, and he and I will play guitar together, and we'll sing that song. And Dad will sing all the dad parts, and I'll sing all the son parts. And it makes me cry every time. Every single time that I hear the song now, it makes me cry. But it always makes me think about playing that song with my dad. And it's such like a heartbreaking song to play together. And we play it in a sad way. But the experience of playing it is very emotional and touching because it makes me feel like I'm with my dad and playing that song.
That's so touching.
A lot of conflicted emotions that kind of come up along with that.
Didn't the Flaming Lips get sued for their melody
rendition
that was very much like that song?
I don't know.
Yeah, they had a song in Yoshimi that album. I think it's the main song actually. Da 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 da, and it's very similar to the Cat Stevens melody.
I totally didn't know that. I'm going to have to go back and listen to
Yeah.
that song as well. I do like that album from Flaming Lips. Awesome. Kirk, did you figure out an Orcish name for your band song?
Yeah, I remember this song. It was Kumash Damun, which translates into Taste the Blood.
So in this case, you're actually like, it's almost like a threat to the Grumsh Worshipers.
Yeah.
As like the taste the blood is the threat. Like we're going to bring it.
Yeah, I was telling Grollo how to sing the song, and then Grollo was putting it to a melody while Shush was playing his violin and doing his pyrotechnics.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Epic.
Kumash Damu. Awesome. So to catch us up, I think we're going to jump backwards just a little bit to the conversation that Grollo is having with his dad. Or actually, I think we're going to say, Grollo, you don't end up having the conversation with your dad, Craig. Instead, the two of you just sit. So what happened at the end of the last podcast was he said, I think it's time I tell you that story. And then he didn't say anything else. He just sat.
Did I just dream it?
And the two of you sat for a long time until he finally said, like, I don't know how to start. And then he got up and walked away, which was extremely unsatisfying. And so Grollo, you're just sort of left with nothing, no story, no anything. But you could tell that clearly he's struggling to tell you this story, to pull it all together, and maybe still thinking about it. The three of you, along with your traveling companions, whose names I have written down because I had forgotten them, Alyssa Grimhammer, Lou Grimhammer, Washreth, and of course Grollo's dad, Craig, are all headed into the Grimhammer sort of tribe lands. And these are plains. They are wide open plains as you come out of the forest. Traveling into the Grimhammer tribe lands means that there's a sense of safety. And I'd mentioned this before, but just as a reminder, Grollo, you feel a similar sense of like safety here. Like these are beautiful lands that you're traveling through. And there's no cities in sight. There's no carts. There's not even trade routes that you can see, like trails or roads that are coming through this. This is just open, wild land that the Grimhammer tribe hunt and travel through. And you can see that the other Grimhammers are very comfortable here. They're traveling through the lands here. They've put away, there's no hands-on weapons or anything like that, and they've even like strapped any extra things that they might have been holding to their backs, and they're just smiling and taking in the sights and smells and sounds of what it is to be home again. And after a short bit of travel, just a couple of hours of travel through these lands, eventually you crest over a hill and you can see down below you a series of tents and dwellings, essentially, all clearly designed to be sort of nomadic and to be moved along and to be traveled along with. Alyssa Grimhammer turns to Grollo and Thrain, because she doesn't speak Orcish, and gestures down and says, "Welcome to the Grimhammer tribe." And there are a lot of people here. There's a lot of orcs, really, that are around, that are making themselves busy. It's in the late afternoon, and you can see a lot of people, and the people yourselves and the people you're traveling with are spotted on the hill by the people down in the town, I guess. And there are people waving, and Alyssa and Lou and Washreth are all very excited to be sort of home and start walking their way down towards the town. And it seems like
something smells good.
They are cooking Lee pies.
Ugh.
It is a familiar smell to some extent. It's one that you've smelled a lot in your childhood when you were training under the orc that taught you how to fight. But it is one that you have not smelled this kind of Lee pie since maybe Cruddy.
Now that's a smell I haven't smelled in a long time.
And I say, this is definitely a smell I have not smelled in a long time. And I'm gripping. Do I have a club? What's my weapon?
It's the remnants of your hammer. So it's the hammer, except that it doesn't have
right.
the top part, the top metal part.
His whole hammer.
So
It's
I'm just like
stick,
white
really.
knuckling it, and I'm just holding on with all I have, unhappy and like anxious.
Shush, are you? Do you want to add anything in? What is Shush doing in this moment?
Shush is kind of apprehensive watching all that's about to go down. This is a strange time. So Shush is kind of looking around, kind of still a little bit traumatized by being tied up and having to escape from that circus tent thing.
As you make your way, it was pretty traumatizing. And this is sort of familiar, maybe to Shush especially. To Grollo and to Thrain, this seems like very different. These are orcs, but they clearly like their lifestyle, the way that they're living, even just the way in which they're walking around the town feel different than the war-ready orcs that you were just in camp with not too long ago. But
hippie orcs.
These are hippie orcs. They're one with the land and one with nature, and clearly more oriented at maintaining their traditions than they are at like starting war or raiding villages or things like that. Shush, I don't think you've had enough exposure to orcs to really get that. This still feels uneasy, and your unease is confirmed a little bit as you guys get closer to the town, because the orcs in the town look very suspiciously at the three of you. But unlike the maybe you were expecting them to be angry, they look scared of you. Of the three of you. And Alyssa sort of steps forward and she says, they are guests, all in Orcish. And so once again, Shush, you're sort of still left out of a lot of this. It's all happening in Orcish. But you can see that there's a tension. Alyssa and Lou and man, I keep forgetting her name, Washreth, are all there, sort of standing next to you and clearly like taking a strong stance. Whereas the other orcs look terrified of you, and some of them, Thrain and Grollo, you can hear them whispering like they should leave. They put us in danger.
Okay.
And Alyssa steps forward and says, "They are our guests. They have come, and we will help them through our lands."
Does Shush have any idea what's happening here?
You can see the tension. You can see like
So
you're like coming up against a wall of people. You're flexing your muscles.
I want to look extra like Shush doesn't know, but these people look intimidated by them. We're pretty cool. We should just own it a little bit.
Yeah.
Shush wants to puff up his chest.
Yeah.
Are we still wearing like the hoods? I can't remember.
You're still wearing the tattered tablecloths for the band Moradin that have at this point, between the swamp water and the stuff that you've been through, are largely unrecognizable, but still sort of colorful and tattered and
probably a fair amount of orc blood too.
Yeah, and mud and swamp and like wear and tear. Yeah, all that stuff. You look worn out, that's for sure.
Got it.
I think Shush knows like 3 words in Orcish, and they're, what was that, Taste the Blood, or whatever the name of that song was?
Oh no, she's going to say that.
Taste the blood! Taste the blood!
Oh no.
Taste the blood!
No! Shush! Wait, what was the thing that you used to do to me to like... Oh yeah, so I start pulling your ear like...
Ow, 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 ow!
Washreth also comes up next to you, Shush, and if you remember, she has a little bit of a crush on you. And she like puts her hand over your mouth and like puts her hand to her lips to like indicate that you should be quiet.
All right. All right.
Um,
all right.
Alyssa says, like, we will welcome them into our lands. This one, and gestures to you, Grollo, she says, is a son of the tribe. And you can see the tribe's people are, the Grimhammer tribe are not enjoying this. And then a voice speaks up from behind the rest of the crowd, an older voice, and speaks up in common. Finally, Shush, you understand somebody saying something. And an older woman orc comes forward. And she is actually using like a cane to actually, I guess, a staff to walk forward and hobble her way forward. And the other people sort of let her have the space. And Grollo, you know this is uncommon mostly because when orcs get too weak, they're usually killed. Somebody walking with like a staff is usually an indication that either they're incredibly powerful with magic, or this is a different kind of tribe that doesn't kill their weak. And she steps forward and she says, "Travelers coming through here." And she points at Alyssa and she says, "You will vouch for them?" And Alyssa stands up tall and she gestures to Craig and says, "His son," and then gestures to Grollo. And then she says, "They have come. They are enemies of the Grumps tribes." And the old woman stares at you for a long time and then says, "Very well. An evening they shall have. Come on. Come on in." You can see the people are still hesitant, but obviously willing to listen to this elder. And she gestures for you to come forward. And the people kind of part ways for you to enter into the town. But she stands her ground and she takes a really long, hard look at you. And she looks at you, Grollo, and she says, "Yeah, I can see the resemblance to Craig. You are his son?"
Yes, but I have mixed feelings about this, and frankly, I think we're supposed to be still trying to fool someone or something. I can't quite remember. So, like, we're in this big adventure, and we can't trust a lot of people. And I'm not sure we can trust you people. And you probably shouldn't trust us people either. But, yeah, I'm his son.
And she gestures with her stick and she pokes you in the chest kind of hard. It's like right here, right in the middle of your sternum. And she says, "You're still a child of Grumps."
What? Why?
She puts her staff down and she says, "I can smell it on you. I've been around long enough."
I hate that guy.
Well, he's been taken from you mostly.
Uh,
I can set you on the right path for that.
It's true that I lost some of my rage.
You will have to find it again if you are to be successful with your adventure, whatever it may be.
It makes me angry to not be rage-filled.
What a quandary.
What? I don't know, but yeah, it's weird.
And she gestures to Thrain and Shush, and she says, "You are strange traveling companions."
We are travelers of similar heart, but different colored skin.
And she says, "Dwarf, where do you hail from?"
I hail from Featherdale of the Dalelands.
And your name?
I am a follower of Moradin, and I am here if you can help travel to a mountain passageway where I will find the hammer of my god, and I will eliminate the Grumpshites, which I'm hearing you're against.
She kind of like laughs a little bit, but it's like really like raspy, like she's like, and she starts coughing, and then she says, "You are a passionate dwarf. You seek out your people, long lost, but your people have slaughtered many of my own,
And yours, mine."
And she nods and she says, "You are welcome here. We are not the people you seek, and we will not attack you. You are safe in these lands while we protect them."
You know where the ancient lair is.
I know the dwarves that once resided in the mountain. They are the dwarves. I have a name for them. Hold on. They are the dwarves of the Balden tribe. And their follies have led them to being wiped out long ago. But their stories remain. If you are seeking that direction, we can help you get there.
I told you, Thorin.
I cast a coffee spell, and my wife brought a cup of coffee for me.
Wow, that's a handy spell to know. I want.
My familiar cat is now meowing. So sorry, what? I was distracted. What did you say?
She told you that the tribe that you seek from the mountains is called the Balden tribe.
And I called you Thorin instead of Thrain. Sorry.
Thorin is my father. Now
I was a little distraught.
I have to text my wife to tell her to come get the cat. Cat.
It's a real problem in the orc lands here. Cats they're everywhere.
Are these like cats, or are these like saber-toothed cats?
They're just domestic cats. They're just all over. It's like Hawaii.
Okay.
They were domestic, now they're feral again. People just can't get rid of them. It's them and chickens. And then she gestures to Shush and she says, "You look out of place more than anyone."
I do in most places.
She thinks on that for a moment. She goes, "Oh, that makes sense."
But he can play music really poorly. You should hear it.
That doesn't sound good to listen to.
No, it's the local. We say things opposite. So he says I'm poorly, but really I'm really good. It's an idiom.
It hurts my ears really poorly.
We're kind of big in Pahiha. He's our lead violinist.
I'm kind of a big deal.
She says, "Well, your music shall be well welcome tonight. Tonight we welcome back our survivors from the last encounter with the Groomshites."
I'm sorry to cut you off. I feel like we're wasting time. There's very important stuff that we have to deal with right now. I smell Lee pies.
She laughs again and coughs, and she says, "You're right. There are more important things to be getting to." And she gestures for you to come and follow her. And she says, "We shall make sure that you are full of Lee pies before the end of the night."
Yes, finally.
And I actually don't have a name for this old woman. So I need a name. Adam, would you give me a letter?
Sure. I have a dice right here that I'm going to use to give us our first letter. It's a D30 with letters on it. It's a Z.
Z. All right. Kirk, why don't you give me the next one?
I'll roll a die too. 2. That's a B.
Whoa, ZB. I'm going to go Y with my mental dice.
I'm going to go R and add one myself. And then Adam, so far this is our name.
Zabir.
Zabir.
Do you want to leave it at that?
I think Zabir is a good name.
Yeah, I think it is.
Zabir.
So Matron Zabir, which is what everybody seems to call her, gets your names and welcomes you in, and you guys have a chance to really relax and rest. It's maybe the first time in a long time that you've been able to relax without being worried about like someone coming and attacking you in the middle of the night or being in immediate danger. And although there may be some tensions and some I guess some diplomacy to sort of work out, there's also a feeling that you're not really under any real threat. And that's sort of how the evening goes for the most part. The rest of the afternoon, you're given lodgings, a place to stay for the night, and plenty of food and an opportunity to sort of celebrate with the rest, because some of the orcs of their tribe were killed when they went to go negotiate with the Groomshites. And so they're celebrating the ones who've successfully returned. And they share with you what they have, and they talk with you to answer any questions that you may have that they might be able to answer. Along those lines, a couple of things that will have a chance to role play out that kind of happen throughout this evening. I would love to know if there's anything specific that you guys want to do. And this is, I think, where we're going to role play out Craig finally telling his story to Grollo. But what else do you guys want to do in this evening, or questions that you might have for Zabir?
Well, we are all probably forced to participate in a traditional orcish dance,
Yeah, I totally think so.
of which I only know half the steps.
Is it all the left ones? You just don't know what to do with your right foot.
So that's one thing.
Do you feel like you're cheating on Cruddy?
Am I going to meet anyone here? Maybe we'll meet other people here. Who knows? It's a big world out there.
Lots of fish in the sea.
You realize
Yeah.
you're traveling with a priest, right? I mean,
Oh, geez. Hey, I'm not married to... Okay, the other thing, though, is...
for the look of dedication.
Well, the other thing is, so if there is going to be some sort of development with my father, I think if anything, right now I'm a little upset because I was really excited because I was going to hear something. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Like, okay, fine. Guess I won't kill you, but like, what's the deal? And then he like chickened out. So now I'm like kind of upset about this. And even though my tummy is right now taking precedent, maybe pretty soon I'm going to start getting upset again.
Sweet. So do you think that encounter happens because Grollo goes and finds him?
Yeah, I have a feeling that at some point, especially if we're going to be dancing, at some point, like, Grollo's going to, like, trip and get frustrated anyways and then go off and find him and confront him.
Sweet. There is a dance, but the music's not very good. Shush, you've heard lots of dances. You've heard lots of music from many different lands. You've never heard the song. It's a song that's specific to this tribe. You've never heard it before.
It's got a simple beat, though.
But it's a really basic beat. It's
Pretty
basically just
straightforward.
like a drum beat, and there's some orcish lyrics that go along with it. But it doesn't have any middle.
It's missing a violin.
It's missing something to really add in.
Only we had something like that.
So there is a dance going on, but Shush, rather than dance, I suspect that you contribute to the dance in a different way.
I fully intend to add to the dance with both my violin and also like a rhythmic foot tapping.
Awesome.
So I can.
Sorry, are there any violin spells that you can do that, like, could reveal anything that we're not seeing or something?
Detect magic? I mean,
is that it?
I could do detect magic.
Depends on sort of what you're looking for. Are you, Umberto, looking for something?
Yeah, if Grollo is looking for something, why don't you just ask him in character? Oh,
I have Zone of Truth, as we've talked about before.
No,
and
I wasn't
Charm
thinking that.
Person.
I was sort of like stepping fourth wallish out of Grollo's position because I don't think Grollo is right now like probably too focused on like figuring out what the hell his dad is trying to tell him. But I was just wondering if Shush was feeling a little uneasy, if he would like go down that path. But
I think Shush's primary motivation is to fit in and belong. And he sees an opportunity here to be recognized and included in a way that may totally blow up in his face. But secondary to joining in the musical extravaganza, he was going to try to like find the person who looked the most impressive eating Lee pies and try to like eat as many Lee pies as them. Like they're spicy. It's like, kind of a
nice
badge of honor kind of thing. Maybe it's you that he would eat as many Lee pies as, but that would be Shush's trying to fit in. That's his primary character motivation most of the time.
Awesome. So we're gonna basically like go through all of these things that you guys want to do in this evening with the Grimhammers. But I wanted to get an idea for all of it. How about you, Thrain? What are you kind of picturing that your Thrain's evening looks like?
I want to talk to Matron Zabir for a bit.
Okay.
Oh, this reminds me. So you might have covered this when you were giving the recap and I missed it, but what happened to our companion, our friend, our buddy?
Oh,
We sent
Nicholas.
him as
Nicholas.
We sent him as a decoy,
Right, he
He
had
could
to
get
go
away.
as. Oh yeah, that's so tragic.
so we're assuming he died in service of making the world a better place.
Right.
You have yet to hear any news about that in one way or another.
Yeah, we don't know.
But there definitely was like a moment where he was going to go back to the city in order to warn them about the orc invasion.
Maybe he'll return in white at the turn.
There you go. That'll be the real reveal moment. Riding on a white dog. Okay,
Nicholas the White.
Grollo and Shush, you guys dig into some Lee pies, and there definitely is like
Yummy.
there's an orc that's totally taller than Grollo. Grollo's pretty tall, even compared to a lot of orcs. He's still a pretty tall guy. There's this guy that's just massive, as a solid like 4 to 6 inches taller than Grollo, and he is just digging into some Lee pies. And
I'm probably trying to still trying to get my hands in there and try to squeeze some lead pies for myself and kind of shoving a little bit, and then he shoves me harder back.
Yeah, as well as he's seeing it as a challenge. You're eating Lee pies fast, and he's eating fast, and he's eyeing you down, and you too, Shush. You're jumping in on this Lee pie eating contest that is now appearing out of thin air. So I want both of you to make me Constitution saving throws.
$11.
Wait,
So
I
roll your
roll
dice
the
20
D20,
and
right?
add a +2. Or sorry, +4.
I can't. The thing you sent me, I blow it up, but it's a little blurry. Are you saying it's +4 for me?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 18.
18. Okay. It goes on for a little while. Shush, these are very spicy. Shush, you are fire resistant. You are capable of handling a lot of spice. But whoa, these are really doing it. But actually, the biggest problem for you is there's just a lot of it. Each pie is gigantic, and they're already 2 pies in. You're eating an entire meat pie.
I'm curious. I've always pictured Lee pies to be kind of like large empanadas, sort of like a calzone.
Oh, okay.
I'm curious if Roberto, you could give me a description of what does Lee pie look like? Is it like a hand pie, like a calzone, or?
Or like a
Yeah.
pot pie?
So Lee pie is basically there's this thick bronzed dough on the outside, right? And it's folded on top of all the stuffings, and it's folded down, and then the edges, like a pie, like one of those McDonald's pies, the edges are kind of folded upwards and in, and then little etchings made in on them, and the etchings are usually pretty elaborate, surprisingly elaborate. You wouldn't think so, but no, they almost look like runes in a way. And then when you break into this thing, again, the crust is pretty thick, and it's doughy, and a lot of times it's almost a little undercooked. So you bite into it, and the outside's really crispy and golden, but then the inside's kind of chewy. And then the inside is just a mess. It's a jumble of and it's it immediately drips, super juicy, and the juice burns your skin because it's so spicy. And then there's chunks, and every now and then there's bones too. And then the orcs and Grollo love the bones because they're they break the bones, but if you're not used to it, you can kind of hurt a tooth and stuff like that. Yeah.
Perfect.
That sounds
a beautiful
delicious.
description. So, Shush, you're the bigger challenge that you're facing. You're keeping up with the heat. The bigger challenge you're facing is you kind of have to bow out just because they're eating so many pies, and you just cannot keep up with the quantity. It's just you're full.
I'm 5'7". This is too much.
You just can't eat another bite. Grollo, on the other hand, you're keeping up. This bigger guy, you and him are just chowing down, facing face to face with each other, chowing down on Lee pies, two at a time. You got one in each hand, and you're both digging in. And finally, you're both slowing down. He's working on his last one, And then he goes and he like reaches over to pick up another pie, like a threatening move, like I've still got one more in me. And then he reaches up to do the other pie, and he just sort of leans back onto the ground,
Jones style,
making you like full on victorious as you like take the last
nice.
bite of your lead pie.
That's what you get.
And at this point, you've drawn like a crowd. There's a crowd of people that have like gathered around and are nodding. And you did notice they were kind of cheering for him. And when you win, they don't. There's like a little bit of like a nodding, like all right. But it's not like a cheer for you. It's more like a all right. You've earned a little bit of respect here.
Is there something I can drink? Some ale or something?
They do. They have an ale, actually a brew that they make on their own. From
move aside. I need me some ale now.
And somebody like slams one on the table and slides it down the log table that they have there.
Oh, maybe too much now.
Yeah.
Now I got like a stomach full of these leaf pies, and I'm just filling up with like ale. I'm so like.
I picture this very WWE style, where you're like walking around, you're like the heel, and everyone's booing you.
Exactly.
It's a perfect moment, and actually, all this leads into as the sun is sort of setting. They start to set up for dancing and playing music, and this starts to lead into the dancing portion of the evening. And the ceremony, they actually do a little bit of a ceremony where Zabir blesses the orcs that have returned from the thing, and what she says in the ceremony in Orcish is that she cleanses them of any guilt or responsibility that they may have had to their teammates. They served their life well, and it's actually a really touching ceremony, but it's all in Orcish. And there's several moments where she like pushes them as like a part of the ceremony. And so if you're not familiar with Orcish, it just kind of looks a little violent, like she's going like, "You're great, push you. You're great, and push you."
So does Shush think something bad's happening?
Yeah, I don't know how Shush would interpret that.
Can I roll for it?
Sure.
Would this be insight?
Yeah, give me an insight roll.
I mean, either way, you're just going to show your muscles again, right?
Well, it could be a mosh pit.
Oh, okay.
It's rock and roll. I was going to start pushing people too.
You're on the rock and roll side.
Yeah. It's just Moradin, baby. I got an 8, so it's not quite clear.
Yeah.
What's happening here?
You know what? I'm gonna go with you think it's the mosh pit thing, and you start shoving some other people.
All right. I like you look around. I guess is what we're doing now. Push you.
Unfortunately for Shush, the first person you push, who's right next to you, is Washrith. Right after she had been already blessed in the ceremony.
Oh no.
And she takes that as a hint that you need to dance together. And so she gives you a big shove back. You push her, and she like teeters a little bit, and she shoves you, and you like collapse to the ground. She's gigantic and very, very muscular.
Like skid along the ground.
Yeah. But she like smirks in your direction, Shush. While this is going on, after the ceremony is sort of over and the drums start to pick up and Shush, this is where you start to like hear the rhythm in the ceremony. You're like, all right. There's some music here. That's a language you speak. That's a universal language. Uh-huh. And this is about when Thrain, you find a good moment to get Zabir alone and to talk with her. And she's like sitting and kind of watching the ceremony. You can kind of take a seat next to her. They have logs kind of put out for everybody to sit on.
Okay. So I sit down next to her and I say, "Matron Zabir," and I'm clutching the heft of my just by my side. "Matron Zabir, thank you for accepting us into your tribe and feeding us with your food and hospitality."
She sort of waves her hands and she says, "In common, please. Could use the practice." And then she says, and she doesn't expect you to repeat it in common. She sort of answers, but she says, "Make no mistake, Thrain. You gave her your last name, right? It was
Orkshorn.
Orkshorn." She says, "Make no mistake, Thrain Orkshorn. You are not a member of the tribe. though it is a title I would love to bestow onto you, the people here are hesitant. You represent a great danger to our people. Orcs are seen as great threats to all the outside people, and you being here makes people nervous.
Well, they, as you know, I hope there's a much bigger threat than any kind of threat I can, bestow upon you guys.
She nods and she says, "Yes, we're aware of Blancmere and Grumsh and their combination."
Why aren't you with them?
She says, "Long ago, my mother was a follower of Lorleth. Long after Lorleth had left Grumsh's sight, and she taught me the ways of Lorleth. And when I was expelled from my tribe for our following, I wandered the lands along with my mother, and the two of us eventually came upon this group of people. And by then, my mother had passed, but it found a new home here in a new belief, a group of people that were lost. And I showed them a different path, a different way. Following Lorleth has brought great peace and prosperity to these people, but has taken away their fear and anger and hatred, for better and worse."
I assume you have at least some memory or some interaction with the Grumshites. When I face them, it would help if I could split their ranks and fragment them back into their individual small petty tribes. Do you know how to do that?
Grumsh feeds on hatred. That is what really drives them. That's what gives Grumsh his magic, his power, is hatred and anger. You cannot fight hatred and anger with more hatred and anger. You just create more of the same. You fuel them as you fight them. If you want to split them apart, you will not be able to do it as a dwarf of yourself. No, it would have to come from within them. And speaking from experience, I'm not sure that any of them have enough left to follow a new path.
What do you mean?
Grumsh takes from you. As you give into your hatred or your anger, as you use those powers to help you become more strong, it also takes from you. You drain yourself, and you become belonging to Grumsh. Well, it's lucky your friend there didn't lose himself entirely when Grumsh took his power away.
Do you know, you seem to know a lot about this, which makes sense. Perhaps you and your people can do something about what's going on back there.
She waits for a long moment, not looking at you, but looking off into the people who now are dancing and now are enjoying themselves with smiles on their faces. And she says, "You ask a large question, Thrain Orkshar. You ask to lead my people to war."
You can lead us to war, or you lead us to peace. I don't care, but this has got to end. That army has to come to an end. You know that. You will die. All these people will die. We will die. The town will die. This entire world will die if Grumsh comes. And if you know how to do this, then you must do something. You know that.
And she kind of closes her eyes and she says, "War will come to our people whether we like it or not. You are right about that. You may be wise beyond your years." And this time she sort of gestures with her staff back at your chest. And she says, "We will rise to the cause. I don't think that we can strike down their forces the way that you want us to. But we have warriors, and we have people who are skilled in battle. And when the time comes, if we can help break their ranks, we will stand beside you."
That would be most welcome, because we are but three, and they are thousands.
And she sits and she says, "You have had a heavy journey, Thrain. I wish to know of your journey so I can know how best to help you. will you tell me your tale?
Absolutely.
And here we'll kind of cut away. But the question that I have for you is, are you honest about what the tale that has happened, or do you purposefully leave anything out?
No, I'm honest. I trust that she would have killed us otherwise, I suppose. So, and this is the same god that Cruddy follows, right?
So there's not a lot that's really known about Loreleth because everybody associates all the orcs with following Grumsh or a number of other pretty chaotic and pretty evil gods. Loreleth was a person, and a lot of the tales of gods, as you know them, especially as Thrain knows them, are really about like they were always gods. Like Moradin was always a god. He was a dwarf, but he was the god of the dwarves, and there was never really like a moment where he like ascended into godhood from being a regular old dwarf guy. Loreleth is different. Loreleth is a person that built a following off of a new perspective, and now is being worshipped as a god. But whether or not Loreleth has like followers that can cast magic, like priests, like clerics can, you've never seen anything like that. It almost seems like Loreleth is much more a like spiritual leader than she ever was like a god. But based on the interactions that you've had with Grollo about Cruddy, and that you're seeing here, it does seem like Loreleth has set a better path for a lot of orcs. These orcs don't seem dangerous to the people in the outside world like many of the other ones that you've come across.
So in my tale to her, I'm trying to get any information about where that mountain ancient city is because I need to get there.
And so as you kind of bring your tale to a close, she nods and she says, "We can bring you to the base of the mountain pass. If you're seeking Mount Acrea, I believe that the city that you spoke of is buried there, once belonging to the Baldan tribe." And she keeps calling them tribe, but that's actually not what dwarves would call themselves. But that's just how she must view it, kind of thing. You would be a clan. And you're, I'll say, Thrain, without even a roll, you're familiar with the Baldan clan. They were wiped out maybe 100 years ago. And nobody really knows why. They sort of disappeared. They lived in the mountains. They're a mountain dwarf clan. And they lived in the mountains, and then they all just sort of stopped showing up anywhere. And there's still members of the Baldan clan somewhere, but they're few and far between, and their city or their town or whatever was basically lost to history. But they were all worshippers of Moradin. As one of the things that you definitely would remember from that is that they were strong and devout worshippers of Moradin. They've just sort of disappeared. She says, I can help guide you to your path, and maybe help you find a way into the mountain to try to find this hammer that you seek. It seems that some help from Moradin will be necessary for your next leg of your journey, especially if you're to battle Grumsh. She taps her staff against your stick that you have like hanging from your belt, and she says, "This won't do for you."
No, I will not. Thank you.
She then nods to Thrain and Grollo, who at this point we're gonna cut back to how this all dancing and music kind of comes together, and she goes, "You will need to look after them, Thrain. I don't think that Grollo will be as invulnerable until he can find his way again."
How can he find his way? Do you know?
She nods and she says, "I'll give him something to at least purge Grumsh from himself. But he will need to find a new way to fill that space. Something that's not hatred. Something that's not fueled by Grumsh. But it's possible. He can find that way again, though his father never did."
Well, perhaps the inner Loreleth in him has already been emerging. He's quite the softy nowadays, actually. Falling in love.
As you say that, I'm falling over as I'm trying to dance. And I'm like, just like tipping over. And I'm burping really loudly because of all the like ale and leaf pies I consumed.
It's perfect, perfect imagery of Grollo, like being kind of drunk. I'm guessing.
Exactly.
She says, well, on his way then. And at this point, we'll cut back. So Shush and Grollo, you're being invited to dance. You're being sort of pulled out. And Shush, you're hearing this rhythmic and sort of chanting, and it's definitely missing this other piece to really pull it together.
By the way, there's a very important thing about Grollo that I hadn't mentioned before. He is convinced he's a fantastic orcish dancer.
Perfect.
So is Shush, for whatever it's worth.
Grollo, I'm going to have you roll a performance check with disadvantage. So you're going to roll twice and take the lower of the two rolls.
All right,
Shush,
so
I'm going to have you roll a performance check with advantage.
+0.
All right, +7 on mine.
And so,
Berto, +0.
yeah, +0. But you wanted me to roll twice?
Roll twice and take the lower of the two rolls.
Okay, so 14 and whoa, no, one. Oh my God!
It's perfect.
God.
I got a 23, so.
Awesome.
Wow. But this is sort of perfect because I was sarcastic, or Grollo believes he is the best dancer.
I think Grollo, you 100% believe you're an amazing dancer, and I'm sort of picturing that you have no real rhythm. You're like trying to dance, but you're like you're doing repetitive motions, but they really don't go to the music at all, which is really the problem there.
I want to help a brother out right now, and I want to dance the way that Grollo is dancing in order to make him look cool.
Oh, I love it.
So I'll do the off rhythm dances with him to make it that everybody's like, oh, it's the 2 steps to the left and no steps to the right dance.
I'll give you one better. As you start to play the music on your violin along with the rhythm and the chanting that's going on, very quickly you become the center. There's one person basically drumming and one person sort of chanting to keep the music going, and you become the center of the band because your performance is phenomenal. You're just filling in like perfectly the middle, and eventually like fills in the whole of the music, and it gives you the opportunity, because you become basically the lead of the band. You see Grollo like Elaine dancing. That's an old school Seinfeld reference for you guys right there. In the center of the dance floor.
And I'm knocking into others and
what you do is you slow the music down. You like create a good stop and then slow it down and then start building it back up again, but this time in rhythm with Grollo's dance. So you're basically like giving him, now everybody else is dancing wrong because they're all trying to dance to the previous rhythm, and Grollo's the only one dancing right.
I imagine it's like dad dancing.
Yeah.
You're like a dad at a music festival.
Oh my gosh. But then it starts perpetuating the myth in my head, because I look around and I'm like, oh, this is really working. I gotta do more of this.
Yeah, and I think it just continues. It's like an ever balancing game. There's this very famous musical. I guess it's an opera. It's about a woman who can't sing, and everything she sings is off key.
Oh, wow.
And the piano player who plays with her plays, and he has to keep adjusting the key to try to keep up with her because she's so bad at singing, but she doesn't know, and everybody just sort of goes along with it. It's a really amazing musical. That is what I'm imagining here. It's just you have to keep speeding up, because Grollo keeps trying to match the rhythm of the music, so you just have to keep changing it to match and keep Grollo in the groove.
I'm playing Violin Hero on Expert.
Yeah, it's definitely the case.
And I look over at Shush. Shush, you're messing up, man. You're making me look bad here.
But the combination works out really, really well. And you can tell the people here, they are loving it. I mean, they are really, really digging that you can jump in and play some music and keep them entertained. And just like you were sort of predicting, Shush, this music transcends language. And whatever hesitancy that some of these people may have had, they have none. They are absolutely like you are a part of it while you're playing. And there's maybe still some standoffish after it all ends. But while this is all going on, the two of you and all of the people of this tribe all feel like you are part of one people. And it's an amazing moment, an amazing experience for you to be there and to be experiencing that. And that's about the time where Grollo trips on a log and falls over top of the fire and spills his beer on himself. And I imagine that's sort of the point, Grollo, where you get frustrated. And
I walk over to Shush frustrated, and I say, "Ugh, did you hear how loudly they were cheering for me? But you messed it up, so I'm out of here."
And Grollo, you go storming off. And I imagine this is probably when you go looking for Craig.
Yeah, I think the way it's playing out is that at first I've kind of forgotten about talking to my dad because I was just like in the moment, and I was like, wow, thinking that they were cheering for me because I was such an amazing dancer. And then so I'm just kind of like upset now because like I'm blaming Shush because he like messed me up. But as I'm doing that, maybe I see my father like in the distance or something.
Yeah, I think he's actually not dancing. He's not with all the other orcs. I think he's like on the outskirts of the tents that are set up for the town, and he's sort of standing there by himself. And here you can see the moon rising high in the sky and the stars, and he's just out there sort of looking at the fields and looking at the stars and the moon.
Okay, so I think I like see him, and in my because I'm like inebriated and still upset at Shush, but then I see him and I'm like, that's right. That's another thing, like I need to pick a bone with this guy. So then I just like walk up and I'm like, hey, you, we didn't finish what we were doing. You were about to tell me something very important and you didn't. And that makes me very upset because Shush messed up and now I was dancing really well. So you need to dance or tell me what you tell me.
And he looks pretty surprised that you're there. And he goes, "Oh, you're drunk. You're drunk, and you're belligerent."
No, I'm not. I'm not drunk.
And it seems like he's like trying to be angry with you. And Grollo, you think he's maybe trying to get out of telling you this story. And is like turning things back around onto you.
I think you're just trying to not tell me this story. So, like, look, fine. I admit I had one too many Leapis, but I really need to hear this. And I can't imagine a better time right now because everyone else is busy trying to copy my steps. And, yeah, this is a perfect time to hear the story.
And he sighs, and he's got like a cloak pulled around him, and he kind of pulls it a little tighter, and he says, "Fine, it's what you deserve, and maybe afterwards you'll understand better." And he tells you this story. He says, "He once was part of the raids that came to many towns. Part of the Grimhammer tribe was well known for their raids. They would come into town and leave just enough people alive that the townspeople would be terrified of them, taking whatever they thought they should take. Happy to burn down houses and whatever those humans and elves who think they're so much better than the orcs hold on to and take it with them."
You're talking about my mother.
He says, "Slow down. I'm still getting further into the story."
Sure.
He says, "And I was right there with them, happy to take whatever we could get our hands on. But there was a code. If you fell, you were weak, and they would leave you. And that's what happened to me. Nothing of my weakness, but a human got in a good strike, and I fell down a large hill, and they left me there. And I would have come back, but there was a bear, and it came over top of me. Before I could get my weapon into my hand, the bear was upon me and tearing at me. And he even like pulls open his shoulder. He's got huge scars down his shoulder. And he says, the bear nearly had me, and I would have died there, except there was a flame and a torch, and someone came forward and scared the bear off. A terrible strategy, a weak strategy, rather than kill the bear. But when my eyes finally adjusted to the light, I saw that it was a young woman, a human woman. And she didn't leave me.
Yeah, but get to the story of my mother.
This was your mother. I'm talking about your mother.
Oh,
I'm talking about Esther. And I didn't know her name then. But she dragged me to her cottage from the very town we were raiding. And she nursed me back to health. She bandaged my wounds. She helped make sure that I wouldn't die. I had a terrible fever for 3 days. And she was there helping me the whole time.
What a baby.
And he looks, rather than get angry at the remark, he looks really sad in that moment. He kind of pulls himself back together, and he says, I was a baby. I was weak, like babies are.
Wait, you were a baby and you were fighting a bear?
Metaphorically a baby. It wasn't actually, I was a full-grown orc male.
You
fully
were
strong.
Supernaturally a baby, okay.
But in those moments, I couldn't even lift my arms, lift my weapon, defend myself. But she brought me back to health. And it was there that I fell in love with her. And Alyssa was nice. And she kept me hidden. The townspeople would have killed me after the raids that the Grimhammer tribe performed on them, especially in my weakened state. But we spent several weeks together, and they were the happiest days of my life. I didn't know what could be until I met her.
Well, my mom was a fantastic person.
And a good cook.
Yes, she was.
I taught her the recipe for Lee pies. She could make them as well as anyone.
You taught her the recipe?
Oh, yes. And she loved them. Never seen a human take down Lee pies the way she could.
Yes. She really taught me how to eat them, too.
I thought I would spend my life there. And she told me that she was with child. And we talked about running away. We knew the town would never accept us. She was pregnant. She had you.
Oh,
she was going to have a baby. You know how all that works. Didn't she explain it to you?
Well, I have broad strokes.
Good. I don't feel fit enough to explain it to you now.
It's a metaphor. I think. So, anyways, so you became my father somehow, and then you left me.
The Grimhammer tribe was well known for raiding the same village multiple times at that time. It was a good plan. You leave enough people alive, they regather their resources, you come back and take the resources again. But I knew that they would come back. And when we heard when the townspeople came to the door and told Aster that the orcs were coming back and to bury herself up in their cottage, I couldn't stand by. I went to meet them, to convince them to go meet another town. This one is tapped out. And that's what I did.
You lied to them.
I lied to them, and I left Aster without her knowing.
Oh.
But when I left, the townspeople saw me. They knew that I was an orc. They knew that I was with the Grimhammer tribe. And I knew that if I didn't stay with the tribe then, I couldn't keep them from coming back. Destroying the town again, maybe going after Aster.
Oh.
So I stayed with them for a time. And any time they tried to steer their way back to the town, I would encourage them, no, there's a wealthier one over here. There's another town. They've livestock.
Wait, so you saved us in a way?
Well, I steered them away from you. At least gave you a chance. Gave the town a chance to protect you.
it was like a metaphor.
I think you're using that word wrong. I don't think you know what that word means.
Well, whatever it is, thank you.
He says, it didn't last long. Before long, the tribe saw me as weak. They thought I didn't want to raid the town because I was afraid of it. And they were right. I had lost my hatred. I had lost my anger. I was getting injured in battles with humans. Battles I shouldn't have been injured in. And eventually the tribe left me behind. When I made it back, I thought, well, this is for the best. I'll come back. Aster and me and you, the young one, can run off. Be somewhere just the three of us. When I returned, the tribe had already been there, and the building had been burned down. And I don't really know what happened after that.
I see.
Took me years of wandering by myself before I was finally picked back up by the Grimhammer tribe. And by then, they had been converted. They had become something else. They had apparently picked up Zabir, and she had convinced them of a new way. But I never knew what happened to Aster. I was sort of hoping you would know.
Well, it wasn't pretty. I always blamed you. I thought it was you. I thought you killed her.
To my knowledge, it was not me. Could have been members of the Grimhammer tribe before they turned over.
I was too young. I was too little. I don't know. All I know is I didn't know the story, and I guess it's much better that I do now.
He nods and he says, I will probably live out my days here with the Grimhammer tribe. I don't belong anywhere else. And I've lost my rage and my power. This is fine for me.
I've lost my rage too.
He smiles and he pokes you in the chest, kind of the same spot that the old Zabir was kind of poking you with the staff, and he says, "I'll bet you can still find it again."
Hey, stop poking me like that. I might just find it.
He laughs and he shoves you, and he's still strong, but he's not as strong as you. He's older than you at this point, and you're in a much fitter shape than he is. But it's still a solid, powerful shrug. And he says, Zabir says that you shall be escorted to the lands headed north, to the mountains, I guess.
Oh, I don't think we can do that because we got to go to some mountain to get some hammer or something.
He says, yes, of course. You should do that instead. I shall go with you, escort you to the edge of the lands.
Okay.
He says, I'm sorry that I couldn't be there.
You just said you were going to escort us.
No, I meant with Aster, with your mom.
Oh, yes. Well,
I'm
I'm
sorry
sorry you were not there either. I thank you for telling me the story.
Your enemy here is not us. And he gestures to the Grimhammer tribe, and he says, it is Grumsh, who's led the orcs astray. That's who's really created this.
I hate Grumsh. Okay, well, then help us get the hammer so my friend, he can use the hammer because his God said something to him and something like that. And then I'm just going to find my anger and rage again, and we'll just beat that guy because I hate him. I need some more ale at this point.
he slaps you on the shoulder and he says, I'll get you one. And he walks back with you to the party and gets you an ale. And you have a chance to drink. He doesn't really bring anything else up the rest of the night, but his mood does seem to pick up. It seems like it was helpful for him to get everything off of his chest. And unless there's anything else that you guys want to do that evening, I think we'll sort of pull it back together and move on to the next morning in your journey out of the Grimhammer tribe lands. You rest well, Grollo, you're a little bit hungover the next morning.
Makes
But
sense.
otherwise, you're awoken, and it looks like Alyssa and Craig will be escorting you out of the lands. Thrain, Zabir gives you something. It's a piece of parchment, except that it has been dyed red, and an envelope to go along with it. And she hands it to you, and she says, the envelope has specific instructions written on the front of it. And she says, give this to any traveler. The instructions will allow them to leave it in a place where the tribe will find it. When you have instructions for where we need to be, we will be there to back you up in whatever the conflict is to come.
Thank you. Will do.
And you suspect that the red dye and everything like that is more to prove that it was you. That it was not just some note left by someone else. This is.
I lean into. I'm here, right?
Yes, yeah. This is all. This is like the everybody's sort of saying goodbye to you as you're like getting your packs.
I lean into Thrain as she hands him the thing, and I go, "It's a metaphor."
It is a metaphor. You're right.
And as you guys prepare your way, headed out, you can tell there's some sadness from the people in the town. They are going to miss having you around, but also some eased tension from not having you there. And you make your way towards the northern end of town. On your way there, you pass by a road. You have a good chance to travel. It's actually a couple of days' journey to get to the edges of the Grimhammer, like hunting grounds and plains and everything like that. And it brings you up pretty close to the base of the mountain pass. And there's basically like a Zabir sort of explains this to you, Thrain. There's a mountain pass that will take you up into the mountains, and it'll get cold. And she actually gives you some furs and some like heavy coats for you to bring with you. She says it'll get very cold, and then she gives you instructions on how to find this cave. There's apparently a cave entrance that will take you into the mountain, where you'll have a better chance of finding your dwarves and your hammer in there. And the Grimhammer tribe lands go all the way basically up to the base of the mountain pass, and the sort of foot of the mountain before it starts to climb upwards into it. And as you're making your way pretty close to the edges of the mountain pass, you camp for the night, and it's basically your last night camping there. And in the middle of the night, Alyssa shoves you, Thrain, and kind of shoves each of you and tells you to wake up. And she gestures for you to follow her quietly. And Craig is also there. He's awake. The two of them were sort of trading off watch. And they pull all of you forward, and they motion because right near the campsite that you all were staying, you can see that there is a full wagon troop of humanoids, and it looks like it's like a caravan, a traveling caravan. And Alyssa turns down to you, Thrain, and she says, "They traveled here in the middle of the night. We don't want to show ourselves to them. Make them think that these are orc lands. We'll have to deal with more of your people coming our way and disrupting our way of life. We've no desire for that."
Wait, these are humans you said, or what are they?
They look like humanoids. You can see them
humans? Okay.
kind of partying, and they have like a big fire, and there's a bunch of caravans that are all circled around. And you can see, actually, you can hear music, Shush, coming from the caravans that they have. And she says, "It would be better for you. Go and introduce yourselves here. You'll have a chance to collect news from the area before traveling your way up the mountain, and have a chance to collect some food and supplies from your own people if you need them." She says, "We'll say goodbye to you here and leave you so that they don't suspect these as orc lands, as Grimhammer lands."
Kapla.
So I'm saying bye to my dad, right?
Yeah, and Craig kind of gives you a long look. He doesn't really. He looks like maybe he wants to try to give you a hug, but he doesn't know if that's the right thing to do. So he sort of reaches over and maybe grabs your shoulder instead, and he says, "Go with Lorleth."
And then I think what happens in this moment is I hadn't really processed yet because like I took it all in. I was a little drunk. My anger was replaced sort of by a little bit of pity and regret. Pity for him for, basically the story he told, but also regret that like we didn't have all this time. And then now all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute. Like, in primitive Grollo fashion, I'm like, wait a minute, like we're saying bye, like what the heck? So I don't react the way you would expect, which is like in the movie I would turn around and give him a hug or something. This is Grollo. And so he just kind of like just slaps his hand away and then just says the weirdest thing. So he goes, son, rah! I like Lee pies, but I don't know how I feel right now.
I grab Grollo by his elbow and I say, Grollo, this might be the last time you see your father.
Well, okay, I might lose my sight in a battle, perhaps, but whether that happens or not, I should probably say bye. So I turn back to my father and I say, my friend can sometimes see the future and seems like I might get my eyes injured. So I should probably say goodbye. And so I do this thing where like I raise my arms and I go smack, smack on his shoulders. And it's like, it's my version of a hug. I go smack, smack.
And he seems to pick up on it and he goes, protect your eyes. They are important for battle. And then he does the same thing back to you and smacks your shoulders. He goes,
my hand goes.
I shall do the same.
Then the apple doesn't fall far.
But he does the same thing back to you, and there's a nod of appreciation along with the ritual. And then I think he and Cruddy kind of sneak off into the night. Not Cruddy. Alyssa.
Cruddy's here.
Yeah,
Cruddy's not here. He and Cruddy sneak off into the night.
You said it again. Wait, this is turning into a soap opera.
Cruddy shows up right here. What are the chances?
That's my father.
With this guy.
It's Grollo Springer.
Craig and Alyssa.
Thank you.
Sneak off into the night, leaving you to make your introductions to this caravan of people. How do you guys want to approach this? It is a caravan of people. They look like they are having a lively time. They look like they're playing music and singing and dancing. Oh, actually, Shush, roll me a history check.
Oh, history is something I'm good at. History. I got an 18 in history.
All right. I'd say that's good enough. Shush, this is no ordinary caravan. In this world, there are these sort of traveling performers that go around. The performers play plays and songs and poetry and tell stories and often like juggle. It's essentially a circus troupe. But in this world, they aren't seen as like necessarily. They're seen as a great boon to bring into your town, especially if they're a really trustworthy circus troupe. Especially if they're a really well-known one. And this, Shush, is one of the most well-known ones. As you start to get closer to the caravans, you can see the cloth on the top of the carts has a very familiar logo. It is the logo of the Blue Generals. And the Blue Generals are one of the most well-known, well-respected troops of performers that travel the lands. This is like unprecedented to come across Blue Generals while you're traveling out and about. These are your people. These are performers to the
Do they paint themselves blue?
They don't. They wear blue outfits. Actually, they do paint themselves blue for certain performances. But they also are well known for these blue outfits and amazing stories of battles is part of the reason why they're well known as the Blue Generals. Is they come up with these sometimes made up, but often based in truth in real battles that have happened in the past. And a lot of the generals are well known for having once been people who battled in wars and in different armies around the world, but who are also performers and who came and joined the Blue Generals to tell their stories. So it's like very exciting to be around them because they're sometimes seen as heroes from battles past. Certainly, they tell the story that way, and also they're amazingly good performers. They really hone their craft.
So they take people who have been in battle and they help teach them to tell their story. That sounds like drama therapy.
This is drama therapy. This is a drama therapy trick.
Well, that's amazing. These aren't my people. So the orcs wanted us to sort of divert this group of circus performers from knowing that the orcs were here. Is that what I understood? They wanted.
The orcs didn't want to reveal themselves, but they thought this was a
Okay.
good opportunity for the three of you to get some news from the world as well as get some other supplies. The orcs didn't have a whole lot. They had some like meat they could give you and stuff like that, but like Thrain needed a new hammer, and they didn't have anything like that. They had like big war hammers and stuff like that. Nothing that was going to be super useful for Thrain. So any other supplies that you might need to get that the orcs couldn't really help you with.
From the orcs, or for
From
the
the
orcs, or for ourselves.
For yourselves.
Okay, gotcha.
it's
We're not like
basically like
middleman. Like, do you have a bunch of cattle for us to buy?
No.
Okay.
And basically the way the Grimhammer tribe said it makes it seem like these humans, these performers here, probably don't even know they're in Grimhammer tribe lands. The Grimhammer tribe tries to keep themselves secret and hidden as much as possible. So they just don't want you to say anything like, "Hey, we were just hanging out with these orcs who hunt in these tribe lands." They
Gotcha.
just don't want you to say anything like that. And they'll basically just avoid these travelers as they travel through the lands.
Gotcha. Cool.
So
What do you want to do here?
Shush and Grollo, let us don our Moradin band personas. It's a metaphor, Grollo.
Yay!
Let us infiltrate, get some information, get some supplies before we head up into the mountains.
I'm always in my Moradin persona.
Good. That's what I like to hear.
It's not a character. All right.
So right now, all the
Shushi-
caravans are in a big circle, basically like to guard people out or animals. And there's lots of light on the inside of the caravans that are all sort of lined up in a circle. But you can easily go like in between the caravans. It's not a wall or anything. You just go in between the caravans, and make your way into where all the people are. And you can smell their cooking stew and chatting and playing songs and singing.
Mostly-
Let's make a splash by prancing in and singing a song.
Like, oh, we just happened to be walking by playing this awesome song kind of thing.
I mean, it's non-threatening.
That's true. As long as we're not singing the song about drinking blood or whatever.
No, we'll be your backup. We'll be your backup dancers, and you can sing a jaunty tune.
I will. I'll bust out. You know what? I actually technically have bagpipes.
Oh,
So I'm gonna bust out my
Play
bagpipes. Everyone loves bagpipes.
Douche, you might want
This
to let
world.
me dance for them.
I think you should dance for them.
Do you guys? So the two of you, Grollo and Thrain. It sounds like Shush is going to play bagpipes. Grollo and Thrain, are you going to sing, or are you going to play any music, or are you just going to dance along with?
I'm definitely going to
bagpipes?
sing and dance. Yeah.
and I will kind of try to skip to my loo behind Grollo.
Awesome. Everybody, give me. How do we want to do this? Shush. I think you're really enhancing this performance, so I'm gonna let you. I think you guys are all doing this together. I really like the sound of this. Everybody, roll me performance checks, but with advantage.
Performance 19.
6 and/or 13. And then what was it? What was it that I'm rolling?
+0.
Oh, plus 0. So 13.
Awesome. 13, 19.
So I got a natural 20
Ooh. Whoa.
with a plus 7
Awesome.
on my performance. So my bagpipes are killing it.
All right. The three of you come tromping in. I'm going to say, especially because the rolls were all pretty good, you had a chance while you were in the Orc Tribelands to patch up and clean your Moradin outfits a little bit. So they're like looking a little, they're not bloody and muddy and torn up quite as much as they were before. They're looking a little more put together again. And you guys basically start coming in from the side. And there's people chatting and there's music playing. And there's actually, they have like a full, like small standing band. Like there's like a guy drumming and another fiddle player, Shush, and there's somebody playing like a full bass. And they're having a time kind of singing along. There's a person singing as well. But Shush, with a natural 20, you perfectly
maybe you should I should blend his song with that.
your song on the bagpipes perfectly blends in with this 3-piece band to the point where people don't notice you until you're like full on playing. Like it's a perfect blend where they think they're just listening to the music, and then they're like, hey, wait a second, there's like an extra instrument there. And by that time, the three of you are already like in the inner circle. And Shush, this is when you like play a little bit louder, and you just take over the music, and then you take it in a brand new direction. And all the rest of the people in the band, they all sort of like slowly quiet and come to a stop as everyone stares at the three of you. And then Shush, you just lay in. You are just wailing. And Thrain and Grollo, the two of you are doing a great job. You're really keeping up. Like Grollo, you are managing to get some real lyrics coming in.
Do things together.
You don't have quite the rhythm problems with your lyrics as you do with your dancing, and so it's actually like coming together pretty well with the bagpipes. And Thrain, you're like skip to my looing right along with it. And it's really good. And you guys make it about halfway through the song. Like everybody just rapt attention. Until finally somebody stands up and goes, Moradin! And then everybody starts cheering and going along with it. And it's clear that at some point your exploits as a band have spread far enough that these guys, the Blue Generals, recognize you by your outfits and by the three of you being who you are. And they are just loving it. And after your song sort of comes to a close, Shush, they start chanting. They start chanting for Kumash Damoon. And they like clearly want you to play it. Do you play the song to go along with their request?
I think I'm gonna play Kumash Damoon on the bagpipes.
It's
sort of
awesome.
This is like an acoustic set,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like the bagpipe version of Kumash Damoon.
Yeah, you can't get this one on the album.
No,
The album's just got
it's live only. I'm gonna pull out a couch and sit on a couch with like a little lamp on the bedside table.
It's like a little slower.
Really intimate, sort of like a
With
tiny
a
desk
little
concert.
wool sweater, the cardigan.
Yeah. It's Eric Clapton's Layla, but like
Exactly.
way slow and jazzy. Yeah.
And I'm going, wait, was it Kumash the Moon or what is it?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Kumash the Moon.
Kumash the Moon.
And Thrain, are you also adding in your pyrotechnics and stuff and your
I am taking my haft and like beating it against one of the drums on the stage in this like mournful manner.
they are loving it. They are absolutely like some of them are sort of singing along. Nobody really knows the words. It's literally like an ancient Orcish tribal ceremony. So they're sort of like, it's got like a chorus, and they kind of like sing along to the chorus as it comes together. And you managed to make it through this. And they are absolutely just absolutely thrilled to have the three of you here. And the leader of the Blue Generals kind of comes forward and goes, who would have thought that in the middle of the forest, in the middle of nowhere, we'd be blessed with the might and sound of Moradin? And he like clasps Shush. He kind of comes up to you as the bagpipe player in this case, and like, yeah. And Shush, I think you're a traveled performer enough to know like some of the customs of these kind of traveling performers. It is definitely like a warm and welcoming handshake.
I do the second part of the handshake where we put our feet together and then hop around.
You do the hop, yeah. And he like is right there with you. And then he says, "Please, we've bread and water to share." And Shush, you know this is a code. This is a code that means we want to make sure you're trustworthy, that you're really one of us.
So I know that means that we also have to share bread and water back with them.
Right. So
I don't know that.
No, you guys don't know. You actually have to turn down his bread and water and offer your own. I don't know that, right? So I probably start like, oh, don't mind if I do. Shush, what do you do there?
I pull on his ear.
Oh, well, I mind if I do. I mean.
And what do you say, Shush?
No, we've got some bread and water for you.
And he kind of nods and he says, then it is to be wine and stew then. And he shakes your hand, and then you know that's the signal to know you're welcome. It's now he's made you an offer of something much better than bread and water. And you guys have a chance to really integrate yourself with these guys.
I tap Shush on the shoulder and I give him a wink and I say, all this Groomsh stuff, it's a little dreary. I mean, we could just go full-time band with Moradin.
I think we should. First step, save the world. Second step, rock band.
Okay. All right. Priorities. You're right.
Yes. No meaning, no need to rock if there's not a world to rock.
Wiser words have not been said.
And I come in, I see you guys kind of like whispering to each other, and I come in and I'm like, are you guys thinking what I'm thinking? Because yes, I could go solo. It would probably be good for me and probably all of us, but we probably should stay to the plan.
Yeah. Good. Thank you, girl. That's cool.
The offer is it's not an offer of dreams. The troupe actually does offer you to stick around and to be a part of the Blue Generals, to travel with them to a town or two and perform some of your songs. You really get the name of Moradin out there. And it is a very tempting offer. They have a lot of very comfortable carts. They even have a place where you could stay while traveling with them, like an empty cart they could give you to rest in.
I think it's important to save face here and be like, actually, I've got some other things going on.
You're gonna play the like I'm a little too popular to sign on with your.
I don't know. Yeah, pretty much. Kind of doing an independent thing, To anyone telling us how to make our music,
The leader of the generals is nods and smirks and gives you lots of space, and says, if you ever change your mind, he hands you like a sly business card.
I do the thing, even though this is not really what Shush wants to do, where he like looks at it and grabs it and pretends that it's a secret between the two of them.
Yeah. Like you're being offered the sign-on,
right? Yeah.
Not the rest of your band. You also learn some extra information while you're here. You learn that the troupe has been traveling around, and they have news of different places. You learn that the orcs have actually stopped invading all these areas up north. There actually used to be all these like orc raids and things like that, and a lot of people are attributing that to the king's like reinforcements up in those areas. But apparently the raids have 100% just stopped. There's no raids that are happening up north anymore. There are no raids that are happening on any of the towns throughout the kingdom. You also learned something else really interesting. Apparently, the city of Pahija has opened up an opportunity, sort of an unprecedented opportunity, to allow orcs to gain citizenship. It's apparently a like diplomatic move on behalf of the king that he's offering it, and there's a lot of people saying that it was heavily advised by Lord Blancmere, who is making a specific day coming up in just a week and a half, where any orc is allowed to come into the city, and they will be celebrated and offered a kinship, and then given an opportunity to gain passes and basically passports to be able to gain access to the city as a way of showing like peace and gratitude to all the orcs. As you're learning this information, Thrain, you know the day that has been selected is also the day for all of the ceremonies. It's the same day that the orcs of Grumsh are clearly planning to invade. There's no way this is a coincidence. This is all going to be tied together.
Oh boy, it's a
How
trap.
How much time do we have?
A week and a half.
Oh geez.
Not enough time to go perform a couple of shows.
Not enough time to go perform a couple of shows.
All right, I guess we'll have to save the world first.
How far away are we from Bahia? Do we know?
You're probably about, if you can get a cart, if you're on foot, you're probably a solid week from Bahia. But
We need to
if you can get a cart and some horses or something along those lines, you're maybe only a few days away. Especially if you can take the traveled roads. You basically, which way makes sense? You basically, Bahia is over here, and there's like all water on this side of Bahia, and then you traveled over here to get to the swamps to the east, and that's where you got to the swamps, and then you escaped the swamps to the north, and that's where you currently are, is kind of further up north. So once you travel up into the mountains, if you want to come back down, it's pretty easy to sort of make your way just sort of back down south and west to make your way back to Bahia.
Okay.
That being said, you have a nice night the rest of the evening, mostly like hanging out and drinking with the Blue Generals. And it sounds like you guys are headed up the mountain after that.
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect.
And does there seem to be an armory or anyone with a good-looking hammer?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So does anybody else want any specific supplies?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember. Didn't I at some point lose my
Maul.
my maul? Did I throw my maul and lose it? Can't remember.
There is an opportunity here. The generals they're not a weaponsmith or anything like that, but they definitely have some supplies, including, I think you can find. Are you looking for a crafting hammer or a war hammer, Thrain?
I'm looking for a warhammer.
A warhammer, okay. Yeah, I think they would have like a really basic one. It's not as nice as the one you used to have.
Yeah.
But it is it'll do in a pinch. And I also think that they have like a sledgehammer, Grollo, that you can totally like pick up. It's like designed as it's not a maul, it's a sledgehammer.
Okay.
But again, it'll do in a pinch.
Yeah, because I don't remember exactly, but I think when we got taken in and stuff, like I don't think I have my maul.
It sounds familiar. I think there was something about that. Shush, the leader of the Blue Generals, is a little. He wishes you would come with, but he makes you an offer, just as like a sign of good friendship, that he offers you his bow for his fiddle. And it's a very high quality bow that that you can play with your fiddle. It's a super, super nice bow. When you play Bardic Inspiration with your fiddle using this bow, you can add an extra +1 to all the Bardic Inspiration rolls. So just a static bonus to anybody who uses your Bardic Inspiration rolls.
That's beautiful.
You guys start making your way up into the mountains. The mountains are cold. You've had a lot of opportunity now to have several days where you've gotten lots of rest, where you've been around friendly faces, and now it's once again just the three of you traveling your way up into the mountains, and it starts to get colder and colder. And before long, you are trudging through snow, traveling up into the mountains. And Thrain, as you're like, there's a snow coming down in front of you, and you're cold, and you're basically just trying to do everything to stay warm. You can hear something almost like a whispering, pulling you forward. And it's driving you, Thrain. It's really like you're reminded of like the hardship from your youth, making your way up the stone path and being driven by Moradin, giving you strength and speed, and that's exactly what you're sort of experiencing here. There's like a feeling of driving forward. Actually, to the extent that Shush and Grollo, you're kind of having a hard time keeping up with Thrain. It's not the speed so much as the endurance, the like driving force that Thrain is showing as he's trudging his way through this snow. And you make your way into a wide field, and there at the end of the wide field, you can see there's the cave that you are looking for. And as you start to go down into the cave, you can see, Thrain, that there are carvings and marks on the walls, almost like the carvings and marks of some kind of creature, a burrowing creature, but into the stone itself. And there, nearby the entrance to the cave, frozen solid, are the remains of what appear to be like half a shield, cut in half by something powerful. And it is clearly the symbol of the Baldwin clan. They're sort of laying against the wall. But no body, no people, only this half a shield to mark the entrance and the location of the clan here.
Can we do a nature check to see if we know what animal it is?
Yeah. Everybody give me nature checks. Thrain, you can do it with advantage because it's stone.
Berto, you're a -1.
11.
16.
I got a 5.
I'll say, Shush, you don't know what kind of animal could do this. You've seen burrowing animals, but nothing in stone before. Grollo, you're in a similar place. You've heard of maybe some creatures, but nothing that could do it on this scale. This is a huge cave opening. You can see claw marks and like burrowed into the stone itself. Thrain, you've heard of this kind of thing, but never seen it.
A bullet?
No, not a bullet. This is, although really good guess. No, not a bullet. This is a kind of bug creature, but huge. And they can burrow into stone, and they can burrow into ground, and they are highly dangerous. And if they are infested here, you're going to have to be very careful coming into this place.
What do you mean, like careful?
Meaning that they travel in huge hives, and if they have burrowed their way into here, that means that this may be a hive for these creatures. And we're going to name these kinds of creatures.
Are they?
Yeah.
Huge? Okay.
They're like the size of horses.
Okay.
Before we name it, I say, looks like some sort of bear.
Yes, it is kind of like a bear, but it burrows into stone and will eat your bones like it's water.
Yikes.
Who eats water?
It's a
Strange
metaphor.
creatures.
Actually, it's a simile, but you know.
Kirk, will you give me the first letter of these creatures' names?
B.
These creatures are called. B?
B.
Roberto, will you give me the second letter?
A.
Adam?
D.
Oh, no. Okay. Kirk?
These things
I-
are bad.
Yeah. I.
Roberto?
They're baddies. They're baddies.
K.
Adam?
O.
Oh, that's good. It's very Japanese sounding.
It does sound kind of Japanese. Cool. I think we'll go with that. These are called Badiko.
Yikes.
And they are rare, but really dangerous. The reason that you know about them, Thrain, is that this is not the first dwarf town to become infested with Badiko. You have heard of other towns, especially from mountain dwarves, that these bugs come in, and if you can't get rid of them fast enough, they could easily wipe out a town.
It's the flood.
Yeah. Very, very dangerous. And the fact that there's all these claw marks on the walls of this cave make you definitely nervous coming into here.
Do I know any exploits of this creature?
You know only the stories that you've heard because you've never seen one. Supposedly, people say that they are as big as a horse, but because you've never seen one, the stories vary quite a bit. Lots of people say they aren't really that big. There's just lots of them. They're small. Some people say that they spit acid, and some people say that's not really true. The one thing that is true is that apparently their carapaces are really hard. But if you can get through the carapace, they're reasonably easy to take out. Most of the time when people talk about the infections, the infestations of these, they're talking about like small ones. They're like the size of small crabs. And if you can get rid of them at that stage, no worries whatsoever. The problem is if they grow too big, then they become a real problem.
Oh boy.
There are small ones and there are large ones. Some say they spit acid,
Ah.
but they can be as big as a horse or as small as a spider.
I
And
will make leaf pies out of these creatures.
I don't know if it's safe to eat them, but if you're talking metaphorically, then absolutely.
You make your way further down into the cave, seeing only signs of the creatures, the same kind of carvings into the walls. And before long, Thrain, you start to notice some dwarven architecture in some of the cave stuff here. And you're able to follow some of the architecture down into some of the other parts of caves. Dwarves build commonly enough in similar ways that you can use your experience to figure out like which direction should you go to make your way to town center. If they're going to have a Moradin temple or something along those lines, that's going to be in the center of town somewhere. And so you make your way down, and eventually you're able to find a small opening because it looks like a lot of the cave has collapsed. But the small opening is big enough. It's big enough for each of you to be able to get through. But it's only about 5 feet by 5 feet. So Grollo really has to kind of duck down to get through it. And as you come out the other side of the small opening, there's a long hall that is basically like the main street path, and there are lots of the remnants of buildings on either side of the main street path that you have coming in. And you can see down at the very end of this path, Thrain, there is the steps up towards a building that also seems half intact. And this building has columns that look like they are well carved and have filigree and writing all along the columns. And there, just beyond the columns on a pedestal, is an old rusty hammer. It does not look like the hammer from your visions. It's old and rusty, and it's sort of sitting there kind of haphazardly on this pedestal. And then you guys start to hear a skittering noise coming from the walls.
Was that your stomach, Shush?
I go, Do we have a light source or anything?
Oh, strangely, you can see in the dark.
Yeah.
I think
I guess all
I
three.
have good.
I think
night
all of
vision.
you can see in
Or
the
not
dark,
night
right?
vision.
Yeah, we don't need light source.
So you have no problem seeing in this cave, and it's about. We'll say it's there is a little bit of light here, kind of leaking into the cave from cracks in different places. You can see it's maybe 100 feet away to get to this rusty hammer, and it's mostly a straight path, but there is this skittering sound that's sort of picking up in the walls. And actually, I think that's where we're going to end the campaign for.
Oh, what a cliffhanger!
Ah, they're coming.
Man, I was just pulling up my character sheet and getting all my spells ready. Mhm.
So with the sort of ending there,
Sounds like we're starting with a battle next time.
we'll probably end up starting with some kind of battle or something along those lines the next time we meet back up again.
Burrowing cave horses.
And I want to take a moment and we'll do a spotlight, I guess, for someone else in the game. So what is something that somebody else did that you really appreciated or that you felt like enhanced the game for you? Who wants to start us off?
Well, I will. So, as always, when Grollo has a role-playing moment, I always appreciate it. There's just so many different layers to Umberto's character, Grollo, that I enjoy as a story experiencing element.
He's very metaphorical that way.
Well, and it would just be so easy. I don't know, like the sort of layers to the emotionality of your character was interesting. You could have been more overt or more obvious or more typical or something, but I think you were truly in your character of just like, I'm confused and I'm insecure and I don't know what to do, and so I'm just going to do this weird thing. And so I don't know. It's an interesting. This whole storyline with the father, ever since it began, has been pretty interesting. I can say I've never had a D&D like a story element like that before. Also, obviously, you Dungeon Master. Again, I've never had a D&D game where I was honestly like more excited about some stupid side quest of a band that we like randomly created as a ruse. There's something about the way you tell a story that just makes it like honestly, like, I don't know. I feel like I'm personally gratified by my character's performance banging on that drum soulfully, So yeah. And, of course, Shush, you're awesome too. And the kind of creativity that you bring to the character and in terms of the performance and all that, like in the same way, based on the past of your vulnerability of your character and how your character wants to be accepted. And so that's consistent. And so me and Thrain both feel great when you get that kind of accolade, which is kind of cool. Anyway, that's all.
Yeah, I was going to say so in many cases, there's these little moments that I think are just so neat. There was a moment where Shush, you did the thing where you just said, "Oh, he's handing me the business card," and I just kind of like look at him and we kind of like I wink, as if like that little moment was so it was like funny, and I could totally see your character like being there. So that was neat, because part of the thing is that I like moments where I can picture what the movie frames would be like for that moment, and so that was one of them. And I really liked the exchange between Thrain and the elderly woman. I forgot what her name was.
The beer.
Yeah, because it was like this, like it was another scene in the movie. It's like, the moment where Luke is talking pretty seriously with Yoda, and Yoda's like, trying to give him advice. And it was neat.
Just to build on that, Adam and I talk a lot about good role play and scenes, and I absolutely totally think of scenes when I'm trying to describe stuff and lead stuff in a Dungeons and Dragons game exactly like a movie. I want scenes that string together, that pull together like a movie. I want combat scenes that are like good combat scenes in movies. and role play scenes that do the same thing. And Adam and I have talked quite a bit about like what makes a role play scene a worthwhile scene, and that's when it reveals or when it resolves something. So every scene that there's some role play needs to have some kind of reveal. It either needs to bring in some new information, or it needs to resolve something that's happening between characters or happening for characters. So I really try to make sure in every scene, even scenes that you play with each other, that you are encouraged towards revealing or resolving something.
Well, and in that scene in particular, what was interesting is that I kept seeing how it would be filmed, because the tent was like open, so you could see the antics that were happening, kind of like, you know how like good comedy movies, like they have funny stuff happening in the background when serious stuff is happening. So that was it, because like you'd see it pan over, and then Grolo's falling over, and then and then in the meantime you're having like the serious conversation, and it's just it was great.
That's exactly how I was picturing it too. I love that you got the same place.
My spotlights for Roberto to when I was like, "What is a lipe?" and you weren't like, "Oh, it's like an empanada." You described that lipe with such detail that I like literally got really hungry just thinking about it. So I would love it if we have any listeners who are bakers, we could throw a recipe together.
Oh my gosh,
I would love to
incredible.
make an actual lipe. Maybe not with the bones.
Maybe hold the bones a little.
No, you gotta have the bones, man.
But just the bones you can crunch on.
Maybe you could just put in some like uncooked carrot sticks or something like that. And put them in there. Get a real crunch, a bone-like crunch.
Right. Maybe some pasta, like some al dente pasta.
Yeah, some al dente pasta
for that cartilagey feel.
Yeah.
So that really like created the backstory of the world. Like these lipais, it had been a recurring, once again, like this like random thing that showed up in our game early session. Like it's been a recurring phenomenon, these lipais, and they just get more and more delicious sounding every time they happen. Because at first it was like there's dirt in them and they're hot, but now it's like
envisioned they were like a apple pie for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, I always kind of pictured a pot pie, so it's nice to have a new image of what they.
I was basing a little bit. So in Colombia, there's all sorts of different empanadas, which are basically wrapped, meats and all sorts of other stuff wrapped in like this fried pastries. And one of the types of empanadas is similar in that it is kind of like folded over like that. So I was kind of like picturing that a bit.
I also have this real desire for you and Roberto to eat spicy food together.
We've
been
trying to do this.
That whole I know, and then coronavirus messed up our plan. But I was like, I had a lot of narrative transference with Shush eating the lipais with you, so that was
yes.
Particularly like I was getting a lot of vicarious joy out of my character doing that with you.
I love it.
But I also, Kirk, wanted to spotlight when I don't know if it was you or Thrain that said it, but you're like, what if we just take the band out and really make it a thing? Yes. I don't know if that was Thrain or if that was Kirk, but
that was great.
I really like seeing Thrain's evolution from like being all about business in Moradin and saving the world as a priest to like, that sorrowful drum playing. He's finding his artistic side.
It was a great moment because
I'm enjoying that.
First of all, it was very realistic in a way because you would, in such a dire situation, and after you've almost been killed and you lost your hammer and all, you almost could see it like, what if we just ran away and did this funner thing, And it was a beautiful turn because normally it's Thrain that would have been trying to, because you and I, like Grolo and Shush might have been the ones going like, let's just go and Thrain would have been like the voice of reason. And this time it flipped, right? He was like, what if we just did this? And then Shush was like, in kind of the Shush sort of way, like, because it wasn't like Shush was reprimanding him for it. It was just more like, well, as you know, first comes work, then comes pleasure. It was great. It was a great moment.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Actually, you guys all did spectacular role playing today, but the spotlight I was going to give was specifically to Kirk for that moment, for the same moment of like, I really like the idea that like Thrain's playing with the like, maybe I don't have to like always be saving the world. Like maybe I can enjoy some stuff a little bit. And this pulls on the idea of like Thrain being like wanting to settle down a little bit, and like maybe that goal is almost like out of his grasp, because adventuring is so much a part of who he is and the work that he does. But I liked that moment because it really spoke to that idea of like Thrain really like being tempted to like, maybe someone else can save the world. Maybe I could just go and like play music and go off with the band. That sounds pretty nice too.
I could have even seen, again, thinking of a movie, I could have even seen a scene very much like that playing out where Thrain brings it up and then Grollo gets excited about the idea. It's like, yeah, totally, we could like, and then as Grollo's describing it, you see both Thrains sort of like, kind of like the sadness kind of creep in because he kind of knows. And then Shush brings in like his little witty, like, oh, first comes work. And then like it all kind of dies down, you know, and the melody picks up the sadness. And
I can almost imagine the moment where like Grollo's like, just wait, we get big enough that we go back to Pahiha and then everybody really knows us. And then it's like that's the moment where you like remember that there might not be the city might not be there anymore if you're spending your time doing this. I can totally see that.
Good stuff.
Now, to point out for people who are still watching, you must be fans of this. As I always say, dungeon mastering is an art form, and it's hard to do. And Adam Johns exemplifies that. And if you're interested in doing this kind of work, or you are doing this kind of work with your clients and people, notice how Adam Johns gets us all interested in the characters. He has those initial exercises up front that kind of gets us into the character. And if we, the three of us, were clients and we were having trouble with self-esteem or with expression or even emotional regulation, or even just like achieving something, that the feeling of achievement together, you know, and the play and the enjoyment of that. This might be the shining moment of our week where we can actually get in touch with ourselves and our friends and feel good about ourselves, feel agency, feel worth it, feel likable, feel needed, and how much that would help one's self-esteem in a way that talk therapy about, hey, you should have self-esteem, doesn't really do it. So, that's why we're demonstrating this is if you could imagine the power of this model, because it's fun. People are dying to do it. You know what I mean? And young adults, teenagers, that's all they want to do, is they want to do this all day long. And lo and behold, it actually helps them as well in a very powerful way. But the dungeon master has to be very purposeful about the way he does it. You can't just play Dungeons and Dragons. I've played Dungeons and Dragons with dozens of dungeon masters, and Adam Johns is a very particular dungeon master. He's very atypical. Like, it's a very strange version, which coincidentally is the funnest Dungeons and Dragons game I've ever played, while also being like the most therapeutic in this weird way. Because you think, oh, therapy Dungeons and Dragons, it must be boring. And it's like, it's not. I mean, for you Dungeons and Dragons people out there, we're still third level. Now, to Berto, he doesn't care. We started third level a year and a half ago. We have not leveled up. If you've played World of Warcraft or, whatever sort of other games, you understand like leveling up is a big part of RPG. We're not, it's totally like irrelevant to like the enjoyment of this game. And I kind of like being third level because it just keeps you vulnerable and humble, but you're not so vulnerable and humble as a first level character. And it just doesn't even enter the brain, and because the story is interesting. And I'm curious about, our new band called Moradin. Like,
right.
This is why Dungeons and Dragons was created. The rules are just in facilitation of this sort of thing for the storyteller, the George R.R. Martins, who incidentally was and is a dungeon master. You create a story that's interesting and compelling, and you don't care about the rules. And so if you're doing this and you want to do this, you have to really pay attention to what Adam Johns is doing. It's a very specific way of approaching it, and a set of skills that he's developed over a long period of time. He makes it look easy, but as a dungeon master myself, it is very hard to do what he's doing.
Awesome.
If you'd like to learn more, you can go to gametogrow.org/newsletter, and we'll announce our training program.
That's true. We also do consultations. So if you are interested in learning how to do this as a methodology for therapy, feel free to hit up the website at gametogrow.org and find the contact us and let us know that you're interested in a consultation. We're always happy to help walk people through, especially getting started and getting their own groups, therapeutic Dungeons and Dragons groups started.
And in the midst of COVID, we're actually working on some webinars. So make sure to join the newsletter, and you can learn more about that there.
Yeah, this is totally serious. People around the world are hiring these guys to teach them how to do this, and they are now doing it with their people. And also, if you're in the Seattle area and you have a young adult or a teenager who might benefit from this, contact Game to Grow, and you might be able to enter one of these groups with one of these dungeon masters, or with the dungeon masters that these two have personally, hands-on trained and are not as good, because there's no way they could be as good, but as better than any other sort of therapeutic game master out there. I could say that because I'm not, because that's not a scientific statement. And seriously, like half of our listeners are clinicians. You can even do this in individual therapy, by the way, or you can incorporate the sort of principles. If you're a individual therapist that works with 13-year-olds who don't want to be in therapy, or you're finding it hard to come up with stuff to do, you can play one-on-one Dungeons and Dragons. That's one of my favorite ways to play D&D, actually, because the player gets to do everything, and you only have one player that you have to kind of monitor. And so, but again, it takes a certain skill, and we have a tool, a box set, if you will, that walks you through. It's sheets of paper, and you follow the steps, and people can go to criticalcore.org to sign up for how to get that. It's being released very soon. Even by the time you hear this, which could be years from now, it might already be out, depending on how things are going. And that was personally developed by Adam and Adam, based on years and years of doing this model, specifically designed to help people like you who are just starting out and don't have it all in their head the way Adam and Adam do. It's like, it helps you, it gives you something to follow. Now, you can't just buy that and know what to do. You still got to follow, what these guys have to offer in terms of training, but it is a tool that can be very helpful. And it's cool. It's got cool art, and it's a very exciting project that we've been working on for a long time. It's been very frustrating, the process of production, and we will get into it, but what a product that we're really quite proud of. So anything else, Adam and Adam?
No, I think that's good.
So Grollo, take us out.
Well, we danced, we sang, at least I danced anyways, and we got some great leap highs. But now we're going to get some bugs on our faces, and that's what life is really all about.
Because
you deserve it.